Welcome to Summary of the Week, your quick guide to the top headlines. Today is Saturday, April 26, 2025. Let's take a look at some of the news that shaped this week. On Sunday, April 20th, Russia declared a ceasefire for Orthodox Easter. However, according to Ukrainian officials, bombardment and drone attacks did not fully stop. A spokesperson for the Ukrainian Air Force reported that in the eastern Donbas region, there was only a partial lull in fighting, while in the Kyiv sector, attacks actually increased. Ukraine's general staff noted that while some areas experienced relative calm, other positions were shelled with artillery and attacked by Russian drones throughout the day. Just hours after the truce ended at midnight, Ukrainian officials reported renewed strikes in multiple regions, including Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, and Dnipropetrovsk. On Monday, Pope Francis died at the age of 88 in Vatican City. The officially registered cause of his death was a stroke, followed by irreversible cardiac arrest. The Pope had long called for peace in Ukraine and often used his public addresses to condemn violence against civilians. The Pope had also called for a full prisoner swap between Ukraine and Russia. The Ukrainian side has been in favor of this, but so far, not the Russians. President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to attend the funeral of Pope Francis in the Vatican next week. On Tuesday, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov responded to growing international interest in peace talks, warning the West not to rush the process. He said this topic is so complex and multi-layered that any attempts to speed it up artificially are counterproductive. Peskov added that any peace deal must include what Russia calls the new realities, a reference to partially occupied Ukrainian territories that Moscow now claims as its own. On Wednesday, a delegation of Ukrainian officials traveled to London for talks on how to end Russia's war. The meetings were to involve the top diplomats from the US, UK, France, Germany, and Ukraine. Early reports emerged that a US peace proposal might have involved two major sticking points. First, ceding Russian-occupied Crimea to Russia, which Kyiv cannot agree to because the step is specifically not allowed by the Ukrainian constitution. Second, barring Ukraine from joining the NATO defensive alliance, a step that Kyiv views as crucial to preventing Russia from invading its territory again. When news emerged that Ukraine and its European allies were unwilling to cede Crimea to Russia, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio canceled his trip to London. Following the cancellation, senior diplomats from the UK, France, and Germany also pulled out. Also on Wednesday, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance signaled that U.S. President Donald Trump is growing impatient with peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, and that the U.S. may pull out if progress isn't seen. He also hinted that Ukraine might need to accept territorial surrender in order to reach a ceasefire. In a recorded interview, Vance said, "There's going to have to be some territorial swaps. We should push both parties toward a contact-line ceasefire and a freeze of hostilities." The comments sparked backlash among Ukrainian lawmakers and analysts, as well as European security specialists, who viewed the suggestion as undermining Ukraine's sovereignty. Kyiv residents woke up around 1 a.m. to the sounds of explosions before dawn on Thursday. Russia reportedly launched drones, cruise, and ballistic missiles at Kyiv, killing a dozen people and wounding at least 90, according to some of the early reports from Ukrainian emergency services, who were still searching for more at the time of the recording of this video. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said that 6 children and a pregnant woman were among the wounded. Kyiv was hit the hardest in what was part of a massive combined Russian missile and drone strike that also targeted Zhytomyr, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Poltava, Khmelnytsky, Sumy, and Zaporizhia regions. There have been Russian drone and missile attacks throughout Ukraine throughout the week, but some of the more notable ones were: on Tuesday, 1 person was killed and dozens injured in Zaporizhia from Russian glide bombs. On Wednesday, where 9 people were killed and 6 injured due to a Russian drone strike on a bus carrying mostly women in the town of Marhanets. Thursday's attack followed comments several hours earlier by U.S. President Donald Trump, who suggested that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was the main obstacle to peace in Ukraine. Thanks for watching this week's Summary of the Week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay informed.